like to talk about, because it's certainly on everybody's mind and everybody's talking about, is the bail reform that's going on right now. And I think that might have been somewhat of a gift to the Republicans at the state level. But just talk about what's going on in Albany, your observations, and some of those topics, please.
Thank you very much, and I'm delighted to be here. The most important thing I can say is thank you to all of you, to the HIA, to all the people who are here. You're obviously advocates, you're involved, and we thank you for your participation. I also know that one of the things that business groups and businesses don't get enough credit for is your own volunteerism, for your philanthropy, always trying to support your local communities, and I think that's something that we need to recognize. You know it, but I don't think it gets spoken about enough as it should be. He won't do this, but I will. I want to give a shout out to Joe, and it's pretty gosh darn cool when a local business gets recognized. His law firm has recently been recognized by Forbes magazine as a premier law firm in the country, which is good for...
Thanks, John.
It's got to be a great feeling. Also, too, I have to tell you, I was somewhat mesmerized. It was a little hard to listen to the county executive because I was still listening to Lee Zeldin say quantum computing. I felt like he was doing Dune Gibbs. He was actually playing the role of being Dune Gibbs. But I want to say one thing about Brookhaven National Lab and analogize it to the HIA. This is my opinion. Brookhaven National Lab is a hidden gem. People don't understand what we have. They just don't. They don't understand the magnitude, the size of the organization, the size of the property alone, how important it is to the Long Island economy, to the state economy as well. I kind of feel to some extent the same way about the HIA. You all don't get enough credit for the work that you do and what you've been doing for decades. And you talking about tradable businesses, I'm going, I got to really learn more about that along with my colleagues in government. But I want to say, I had the privilege of serving with Lee Zeldin in the state Senate. He's a dear friend, he's a valued public servant, and I'm going to put this out there. He played a critical role in that award. Let's not dance around it. And the real point I want to make, it's been great sport and great folly to lambaste the federal government. There's a lot of elected officials who make that their avocation and their profession. And they go after the federal government and they go after the president in particular. That's their God-given right, but that has a backside to it. And I am very grateful that we have a leader here who knows how to work with people and not dump on the federal government and this administration. And I personally believe that's a critical reason why this happened. This man created a legacy along with a lot of other people, but he acted like a real leader. Now, to your question, I'm going to be a little bit like the stink bomb at the party because you want reality. And reality is that there is hyper-partisanship in Albany. You have one-party rule, you have the governor, you have the Senate Democrats, you have the Assembly Democrats. Mike and I and all of our Republican colleagues, and I want to be crystal clear, we voted against the budget, we voted against every criminal justice reform, and I chafe at saying that it's criminal justice reform because what it is an abdication of one's responsibility, and it is undermining public safety. People are less safe than they were 3 weeks ago. And here we are at an economic development, business, trade association, and the one thing that everybody's talking about is bail reform. That's a crying shame that that's going to be the primary subject that we're dealing with. But let's be realistic about what's involved. When you take a project and you take an issue and you don't listen to the people who actually have to administer the law, when you go out and you say, we're going to do this because it's got to get done, and this is rich and poor, and it's about poverty. No, it's not. It's about public safety. And the reality is that people are less safe. We saw a human tragedy just a couple of days ago here in Suffolk County. And when we talked about this in June and August and October and December, People are saying, oh, you're fear-mongering. It's not going to be that way. It's not going to be that way. A 27-year-old man was killed in Suffolk County as a result of someone being released under this new law. That, ladies and gentlemen, is real life. And we need to talk about this, and the governor and the Democrats own this. And I'm going to keep saying it because it ties into a lot of issues. The notion that there's going to be tweaking of this law, that is ridiculous. The law should be repealed or a moratorium put in place. Nobody talked to the sheriffs. Nobody talked to law enforcement. Nobody talked to the DAs. Nobody talked to the people who are out there. The first responders. We have volunteer first responders that are now subject to more scrutiny and more background checks than the criminals. There's something inherently wrong with that. So when you hear someone saying, oh yeah, we need to look at it, we need to tweak it, that is not good enough. It's just not good enough. You have people being let out with vehicular assault, vehicular homicide. I don't want to be going back to my community and say, well, we decided we tweak it a little bit, but we're going to leave in or make sure that someone who has possession of child pornography or something involving children, we didn't think that was going to be part of the tweak. It's a bad law. It's bad public policy, and it's detrimental for every community across the state of New York. The mayor of the city of New York, not exactly a conservative, came out and said we need to make changes. The governor talked about it. He didn't do anything. There was nothing in the state of the state at all. With everything that was talked about, he went through accomplishment after accomplishment. It wasn't talked about. And now we're going to be facing down. The mayor came out and said they have to spend $175 million more in the city budget to comply with the law. Same thing applies to Suffolk County. Same thing applies to Nassau County. Someone quipped to me when I mentioned the $175 million from the city, does that include the phone cards and the Mets tickets and the Metro cards? So public safety, ladies and gentlemen, is at risk, and it ties into quality of life. There are a whole litany of things that I can talk about vis-a-vis economic development. I'm going to be having to leave here to go to a regional breakfast involving education and aid to education on Long Island. And I'd like to, if I have a moment, to just talk about economic development. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
John, don't hold back, though. Just don't hold back.
No. Listen, you know what? Lee said this. I'm in Albany. This is my 34th year in elective office. And I'm in my 20th year of serving in the minority. I get it. I've seen both sides of the coin. When you're in the majority, you have to take the responsibility of the policies that you advocate for and the ones you implement. Our role is to play somewhat of the loyal opposition. So in my opinion, these are the things that you should be looking at. Long Island got shortchanged last year, plain and simple. Long Island got shortchanged on educational funding, and I have the facts and statistics to back it up. Long Island got shortchanged on capital money, on infrastructure investments. And the projects that people have talked about, $20 million for Kings Park, $20 million for Smithtown, $20 million for the Oakdale Merge, $50 million from the Ronkonkoma Hub, $25 million from Cold Spring Harbor, $75 million for Stony Brook University, $20 million from MacArthur Airport. That involved things like Tom Croce. That involved people like Phil Boyle. That involved me being directly at the negotiating table, telling the governor, we're not signing off on the things you want in other areas until you do these things for Long Island. And I'm telling you right now, it's swimming upstream. Here's a very important example that people need to look at. There's a lot of talk about the MTA and a capital plan that's over $50 billion. When we were in a majority, we said we're not signing off on any plan until it's statewide, including Long Island. Long Island got shortchanged on transportation money last year, and unless voices rise up now, and it's already getting too late, because the MTA plan has been talked about, but there's nothing for Long Island. There's nothing concrete for Long Island yet. And yes, I'm calling out the governor, and I'm calling out my colleagues, because this stuff is hugely important. Educational funding, capital investments, that if you don't stand up now, literally right now, and the governor can add things to his budget today. He'll be giving the budget message next week. He can add things today based on what you say. And if he does it, God bless him. If he doesn't, we're going to call him out. So I am very passionate about this because we are at a crossroads. And the policies coming out of Albany now are deleterious in large part to the people that I represent. And my obligation to the people in this room and to the people I represent is to stand up, speak out, and be heard. And I am very proud to do that, and I'm deeply grateful for the opportunity to be here.
Thanks, John. Thank you so much.